I read about or read what you wrote about your photos here. Being in Nashville, I was born in the South. I lived in Georgia for a long time, and I've been through Nashville several times. When I was younger, I don't really know it that well. I did have family that lived there for a while, actually. Um, yeah, I was kind of scroll through the photos again one more time. Um, cool. But I lived in Savannah, and actually I lived in Stone Mountain, Georgia, also, where I was one of the only white people ever in most of those places, especially in elementary school. It was interesting. I was maybe there's in fifth and sixth grade. There's probably 60 something, 70 students, something like that, maybe three white kids. It was interesting to be on the other side of things and uh, kind of in some ways I experienced racism. In other ways, there is no big deal amongst people. It's interesting though just to be on the opposite side of things. And most recently, living in Savannah, I lived in areas that were people referred to as the ghetto as well. And in some cases it was, and some cases though, the black people that lived there were awesome. The guy across the street helped me out with my car one morning. He said I just looked like a mean guy. My mom even called me mean old Dave, but I'm not really mean. There's like really great people, but people were just other white people were kind of freaked out. That there was a black guy on the road or on the street that looked angry. But he totally bailed me out many times. He was a great guy. Anyway, to your photographs. Sorry. Um, yeah, I appreciate what you're doing. And looking at a lot of these, like your compositions are pretty strong. Some of them I'd like you to move a little bit more or square up a little bit more. I really want you to look at a photographer named Walker Evans. And he photographed like the exterior buildings in places like Cuba and all around the American South. He was supposed to, in the 1920s, I believe, like during the Depression, show the American South as like a depressed place. And he photographed not 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 signs like this, but like billboards or ripping down and storefronts and things like that. I really do like obviously these are the message and what you're talking about. This is like right on point with what you're talking about. I would like to know like these, like a detail of like what looks like what building this is. It's some sort of church. And I could make an assumption it's an African American church. But that may be too assuming too much. And I tried to zoom in, but I can't quite see what the sign reads. But I would like to know more. It's interesting just knowing what you wrote about and the context. I'd like to know more about it. Yeah, I would say to look. Well, there's a couple of photographers. There's an African American photographer who is at here at ASU named Stephen Mark Smith. He's an interesting photographer to look at. Just kind of he deals a lot of his work is with African American history and slavery, etc., that kind of thing, and dealing with culture. He's coming from his own perspective. Um, but you have to yeah, again, like I'm curious what building this is. Looks like a beautiful building. Your treatment of it, though, I would like you to kind of square up and like maybe get a little bit more center. Take us a little more time around some of these buildings. I don't know if you photographed like 50 shots of this building, but spend time and take 50 shots of like each one of these places. If you didn't, and if you did, I apologize. Maybe it's just a little bit in the editing. I maybe choose one or the other one. Um, but this is a nice, very well done photograph too. Just the way that each pillar leads you back, 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 back. It's very well done. But this one I would like to be like constructed kind of like that. This is a little bit more kind of in your face. Like here's a building where this has those layers. It's nice. And this is awesome too. I really love this. I think this also speaks to the culture, and you're like in there to able to show that culture a little bit more. Again, like I'd want you to square up. I want you to stand like over in this direction here, and get rid of this on the side. Like I don't care about it. Like this is what's awesome. Like this signage is great. This sign is awesome. I love that. And these details, like this reminds me so much of Georgia and South Carolina where I grew up. Eating at a lot of these places, small neighborhoods or along the side of roads, or that kind of thing. So I really like that. But if you want to talk about community, I don't see any people in here. And that's it's something I would encourage you to do too if you're going to photograph in your community. I'm sure that obviously there's African American community, so are you able to photograph these people as well, or aspects of their life? This is you're trying to show this place. It's I'm sure people live here and it's totally devoid of people. Um, and I'm not great at photographing people, and maybe you kind of shy away from it too, and that's okay. But to show a space, you need to kind of consider that as well. And then, something that comes up too, because I'm a white guy who goes out into the desert to photographs where, brown people are not necessarily accepted. I go to the border, near the border, where I have a lot of run-ins with Border Patrol. Um, and just you have to be kind of aware that in some cases, we have a certain privilege, and I don't know what the economical situation is of this neighborhood. In Savannah, a lot of places that I spent time in or lived in where the, the people around me were in very rough shape economically. And me with a camera, that meant I was a very privileged person. And to take a photograph in their neighborhood or of them in their place or their neighborhood, it's like a power dynamic, and you just have to understand how some people can read that and take it very negatively, and could be seen as This is a stretch, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but some people have been accused of like white man colonialism, kind of going into other cultures and just photographing other cultures. And you're not doing this because this is your neighborhood and this is where you live, or this is where you spend time. But you just have to understand how some people could read it that way. Yeah, some of these are really great. Yeah, I really like the Jimi Hendrix. I would like it to be maybe it's just a little blurry up there, maybe a little far away from it, zoomed in. But I like to be a little bit sharper. But you have a great quality of light with most of them, and some of the compositions are great. Some of them, again, I just want you to square around a little bit more. But I love the subject. I love that you're exploring that. Definitely have any questions? Feel free to email me. And yeah, it's again great concept, and yeah, good for you. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions.